Morning, Mike.
Hey, Sully, how are you?
Your summer vacation's over, man. We need you back on the air.
Exactly. You know, it was a fun summer while it lasts, but it's amazing. Middle Township, I believe, plays Thursday, August 31st. You've got games September 1st, so we're less than 10 days away from the start of the high school football season. So exciting times.
Oh, Middle's playing in quote unquote week 0?
Yeah, Middle is playing week 0. They had they will be hosting Steinert, I believe, on that Thursday, August 31st, down at Middle Township. The Pittman football program kind of folded down to the JV level.
Oh, that's right.
And,
okay.
Middle needed a game this season, and they agreed to play with Steinert on week 0. And I would assume they're playing on Thursday to kind of avoid short traffic on the Friday of Labor Day weekend. But it's one of a couple of games on
that makes sense.
week 0. You play a couple of games on that week 0. You got Malvern Prep and St. Augustine playing up at Villanova. You've got Bridgeton and Hamilton meeting on Hamilton that Friday night. Both those games are on Friday. And I believe Central Regional and Southern Regional are also playing on that Friday night, September 1st. So, it's a big week 0 this year with 4 games.
So, Mike, we were talking early in the show to Jonathan Caputo of Buena Regional. I know you just recently wrote about them this week in sort of your summer tour of the football camps. What about this squad? I mean, they went 4-6 last year, kind of an atypical year for Buena. We're used to seeing them win 7-8 games and make some noise in the playoffs, but a little bit different atmosphere around Buena. They dropped down to Group 1, so they're struggling with numbers like some of these other schools. Jonathan said they got about 30 guys out, from sophomore to senior year, so that's not a big group to work with. So you got to kind of adjust your preseason a little bit in terms of the numbers and keeping everybody healthy.
Yeah, the one thing that, and you're right, we're starting to put some team previews up on our website, PressOfAC.com, and Buena was one of the first ones that we put up there in that United Division. And what kind of stands out for me about Buena is their schedule. 4-6 last year, but there aren't too many tougher teams, traditional Cape Atlantic League teams that played a tougher schedule than Buena. I looked it up. 7 of their 9 opponents had winning records last season. And, a 5-game stretch, Collingswood, Highland, Cedar Creek, Holy Spirit, and Absegami, those teams were 43-13, a combined 43-13 last season. Buena went 0-5 against those teams, but they played them tough. I think they only lost to Highland by 2 points. They were in several other games. So I think when you look at Buena, at 4-6, a lot of talented players back. I know Sean Rice at running back, Dominic Brunazzi up front. I think if Buena can figure out a way to get one more win, probably would have got them in the Group 1 playoffs. And if they get in the Group 1 playoffs with their talent, I think they can have an impact in South Jersey Group 1. So Buena kind of a team to watch, kind of a spoiler team to watch this season, but a very, very tough schedule. And that stretch of 5 games, against those 5 teams that were 43-13 last season is really going to define how they do this year.
Yeah, they're going to have to find a way to score some more points than they did in some of those games. I mean, you look at a game like against Absegami, I think the final was like 9-6, so they really couldn't punch in that second touchdown to get the win. So that'll be the real question mark for them. Can they score enough to maybe steal a game or two during that 5-game stretch?
Well, I know Coach Caputo had talked to me about the quarterback position. They've got two guys, Nick Katova, a junior, and sophomore Luke Santiago, competing for that spot. Both can throw the football a little bit. Last year, Buena was very run-oriented. I mean, they're usually a team that likes to run the football. Last year, overly so, didn't have much of a passing game. So if one of those 2 kids can take hold of the quarterback spot and maybe give them, the ability to throw a football, they don't have to throw it 20 times a game, but if they can throw it 10 to 12 games, mix in some timely passes, maybe that'll help them put some more points on the board.
Yeah, and Mike, we're focused on a couple of different divisions this week, the Constitution, Diamond, and the United, and you can obviously speak to the United. Before we get into Holy Spirit, that the rest of that division has become a lot more competitive. You're talking about a Pleasantville team that won 4 games last year after not winning a game for 3 seasons. Middle Township had a nice year, 6-4. So, and also you got lower as well. They were 2-8. So, but Holy Spirit's, it's not going to be a steamroll this year, I don't think. I mean, those other teams are starting to come together a little bit and a little bit on the rise when you're talking about Pleasantville and Middle.
Yeah, well, I think you're correct there. I think Middle Township, 6-4 last season. They returned Jalen Freeman, who averaged 12.6 yards per carry last year. They've got some other talented football players down there. They're kind of a program on the rise. Pleasantville, I think Chris Sacco, the coach, has gone in there and done really a tremendous job. Pleasantville, I think they were 4-2 at one point. They kind of faltered a little bit towards the end of the season. They finished 4-6. They've got quarterback LaQuay Adhill back, threw for 9 touchdowns, ran for 12 scores last season. So there's kind of energy, in both those programs. And you got a lower Cape May team that's rebuilding. 2-8 last season, but they've still got, some talented players back, and they're kind of headed in the right direction. Quarterback Brennan Ray had a good season last year, more than 700 yards of offense and 11 touchdowns last season for him. So you're exactly right. I would put Middle Township and Pleasantville in that spoiler class. Lower Cape May is still rebuilding and improved, but that is a division that is improving. But I still think when it comes to the United Division, all conversation will kind of begin and end with Holy Spirit this year.
Yeah, I think the interesting question will be, how does Pleasantville respond to winning some games? Obviously, they went a couple of years without a win, and the program was really down. But they come back last year, win 4 games. So can they use that momentum to start building something good there? That'll be interesting to see what happens this year with, you got that 1 year of confidence back. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I don't have any doubt that they're going to be a better football team this year. First of all, I like I love the job that Coach Chris Sacco has done there. He comes from Hamilton. He coached at Hamilton and St. Joe. Hamilton's a football town. He's got a passion for the game. I've seen him at practice. He's demonstrating how to tackle. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. He's got a good staff, and nothing succeeds like success. So although they didn't maybe finish the season the way they wanted to finish the season, it's been a long time since Pleasantville's won 4 football games in a year. So I have no doubt that they will be able to build on that success going forward. They play the same schedule that they had last year, which means there's winnable games out there for them. So, I would expect Pleasantville to, again, be a competitive team. And, again, I kind of put them in that spoiler role, which means, you might look up or wake up on a Saturday morning or check the scores on a Friday night and say, hey, Pleasantville won a football game that, you didn't think they could have won, last year or a couple of years ago.
Talking with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, obviously in that United Division, all the talk is about Holy Spirit, and they got transfer Josh Zamat in at quarterback from St. Augustine Prep. Some real good players returning from last season. Anthony Lord up there on the line. You got a kid like Elijah Gray who got some time as a freshman. Big tight end who I believe is a sophomore this year. So they got a lot of parts that could equal, return trip to the state championship if they can play well enough. I know that's kind of their goal, and it was interesting. Mike Frankel did a preview on them, and it was interesting to hear Anthony Lord say that the way they lost that state championship game last year was just devastating. But he said, look, the following weekend, it was out of our minds. We're focused on 2017. So that kind of loss can really hurt a program for several years if you let it get to you.
Yeah, and so you're talking about the loss to Mater Dei in the state non-public 2 title game up at Kane University, a tremendous football game. Holy Spirit rallied, tie score late in the game, and they lose on a hook and ladder play with 6 seconds left, a 50-yard hook and ladder play. Just a kind of really crushing emotional defeat to lose a championship game that way. And I talked to AJ Russo yesterday. We got a little story about Holy Spirit up on our site right now. And AJ basically said the same thing that Anthony Lord said was, hey, it was a crushing defeat, but a week later they were back in the weight room, and that kind of shook the disappointment off, and they're kind of using it as motivation for this season to get back to that state non-public 2. And you would certainly expect Holy Spirit, along with St. Joe and along with Mater Dei and probably Immaculata from up in Somerset County, to be the top teams in that state non-public 2 bracket this season.
Yeah, I know that, and there's a lot of excitement about this kid Zamat coming over from St. Augustine Prep. I mean, he's really a playmaker and just kind of exudes that confidence you want out of a quarterback. He comes in there and he looks the part. He He speaks well to the media. He knows what to say. I mean, he's really almost that instant captain, you know what I mean, that a lot of teams don't always have.
Yeah, senior quarterback as a junior at St. Augustine, was one of the best quarterbacks in South Jersey. Led the Hermits to a 9-1 record. The big thing with him is he can run and throw the football, but he gives spirit a dimension that they really haven't had, the past few years at the quarterback spot, basically. He threw for 15 touchdowns last season. He ran for 9 scores. He is eligible right away after moving from Millville to Buena Township, so he won't have to sit 30 days. But if you think about Spirit and some of the quarterbacks they had in the past, even when they were very, very good and winning state champions, I don't know if they've had somebody like Zamat who has had the ability to run and throw as effectively as he does. So he really gives the Spirit offense a new dimension. And, of course, Spirit also adds, a great coach in Charlie Roman. He goes back after coaching the head coach at Holy Spirit, leading them to state championships, and I believe 2010, 2011, goes to St. Augustine as an assistant for 5 years, and now he's back at Spirit as the offensive coordinator. So Spirit, obviously, great expectations around that football program this summer.
Yeah, the offense is definitely going to look a little different than last year, where they just kind of pounded it with Reggie Jean Charles and Justin Figueroa. So I'm thinking a lot more variety this year.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if if Spirit, when they were at their best and winning, they love to run the football, and I would suspect you'd see a lot of that, especially with some of the guys they have up front. Demetrius Pally up front. Anthony Lord up front. Owen Kramer up front. Those are big guys, like you said, that have been in the weight room since a week after the loss to Mater Dei. So I wouldn't be surprised if you still saw, Holy Spirit run the football. And the other thing that kind of sticks out to me about Holy Spirit is, a very talented, sophomore class. You mentioned Elijah Gray at running back. I mean, they just have a ton of talented sophomores that they're going to mix in there with seniors that have kind of been around forever. Lee Dawson at defensive back and wide receiver, kind of 4-year starter right there. So, so they've kind of got the table set up for them to have a standout season. And I think they'd be the favorite in that division. And and then they've got some big regular season games along the way. Their crossover schedule is not easy. Delsea Regional, Camden Catholic, and St. Joe. And then a huge one with St. Augustine at St. Augustine on October 13th, that Friday night. I mean, that's going to be one of the games of the year right there. So, considering, that Zamat played for the Hermits last season, so there's going to be a lot of hype around that game. So, the schedule is not easy for Spirit, and it's an improved division, too.
Good stuff, as always, Mike. We appreciate you coming back on board, and we'll catch up with you soon, bud.
All right, I don't think I missed a beat. I'm ready to go. I'll talk to you later.
Good stuff. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
See you later. Bye-bye.
That's Mike McGarry. He does a great job for Press of Atlantic City. We love talking some high school sports with him.